All right, welcome back to the Nerd Corner, and this is the Discovering Eden podcast. My name is Brandon.
And I'm Jonathan. I'm sorry, I'm still giggly from the last 15 minutes.
Wish we recorded the last 15 minutes of us just thinking and goofing around, just talking about whatever. But anyway, we're going to be talking about Star Wars. And quite briefly, I would say, because there's a lot to talk about with Star Wars. We're obviously only going to be getting the tip of the iceberg. We wish we could have watched everything from the week that we spent from the last video to now, but we have jobs, and well, Jonathan here fell asleep on the couch while trying to watch one of them. So, not to diss anything,
It's not the
on
movie's
Star
fault.
Wars.
I was tired.
Yeah. So
It's the movie. I was watching Return of the Jedi. Just kidding. I'm
go-
just kidding.
anyways, would you like to go lead us into prayer, Jonathan?
Yes, young Padawan.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
Dear Lord, we just thank you for this time that we get each week to gather, both with each other, but also with you guys as well as the audience, and just to share our interests, our passions for pop culture and movies and games and all of that stuff, Lord. And we just pray that that there's truth, that you have something to share with the audience through our words today. And what isn't from you, Lord, we just pray that it falls to the ground and is forgotten. And in your name, amen.
Amen. And then we're going to try this again.
Bumper time.
Go to the bumper. All right. So, Star Wars. Now,
George Lucas's magnum opus.
yes.
Without a doubt.
Definitely.
It's not Willow. I like Willow, though.
Okay.
It's like, shut up.
And obviously, there is a little bit of a discrepancy when we talk about Star Wars, because there's a time when George Lucas and Lucasfilm kind of had the reins on it, and then when Disney had it.
So why don't you enlighten me? What are we talking about? Are we talking about Disney?
So,
Or are we talking George Lucas?
what we're going to mainly talk about is George Lucas's Star Wars. So, mainly the original trilogy, but we'll dive into like the prequels. And then one thing of Disney that I really liked, the movie, was Rogue One. Mainly because of, A New Hope. And that's like one of my favorite Star Wars movies. And maybe that's why I like Rogue One so much, is because it dives into the original New Hope.
Rogue One is. If Disney made a good Star Wars movie, it's Rogue One.
Yep.
Everything else is a mixed bag. Or just bad.
Or just a bag.
What?
I don't know. A mixed bag? Well, it's not really mixed. It's just a bag.
You don't know what's in the bag.
Exactly. But
We've lost the script already.
it's empty, is what I'm saying.
Good thing we're editing this down, right?
Nope.
Nudge. Shoot.
Anyway, so going off of the favorite movies, I already kind of gave it a hint as to mine. New Hope and Rogue One are kind of around that tier for like the top.
Yeah. I'm going to have to agree. I like New Hope. That's my favorite one of all of them. I do like Rogue One a lot. It's not my favorite of them, but it is, like I said earlier, the best Disney one that they've put out, in my opinion.
Now, that's nothing against like the prequels, because I really like the prequels, especially some of the character development we get more toward Anakin.
Yeah.
Because spoiler warning, Anakin's like my favorite character in the whole Skywalker saga.
His story is definitely one of the most interesting.
It's definitely the most powerful in my opinion. Obviously, people gravitate toward like Princess Leia, Luke Skywalker,
The
Obi-Wan.
Ewoks.
Yes, Ewoks, definitely Ewoks.
That was my go-to in
Or the
like Lego Star
Jawas.
Wars.
Or the Jawas, you know. All the Halloween outfits of
Yeah.
Jawas, you just put a...
Oh man.
Obviously, you got the iconic duo of C-3PO and R2.
What's your best R2 impression, Brandon?
I don't even want to try.
Okay, that hurts. I
Fine, would you do it?
No, I asked you first. I'm embarrassed. That was not R2D2.
Nope. Didn't try. Well, I mean, I guess I did.
You didn't try?
I tried, but not really.
I don't want to do this anymore. I want to go home.
Oh, okay. Sorry, young Padawan.
That was my line. All right, we better get into it before
getting back
I lose
to
the
the script, yet non-existent script, but you know, we just kind of go. So basically, what the original trilogy is it follows the story of Luke Skywalker, kind of going around the path of the Jedi and learning what the Force is and different things, and then confronting his father. Spoiler warning. Anakin, which it by this point it shouldn't be much of a spoiler warning.
There is going to be that one guy though,
as it's been out for I don't know, decades. As in the original trilogy came out with A New Hope in 1977, so yeah,
that puts things in perspective, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, just 20 years before I was born. Oh, and
we're not that old.
By the way, the original trilogy was done before I was born. Yep. That's a thing. So, obviously, when it came out, super popular. Again, going toward that hero narrative.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure.
Luke is your, prototypical hero.
Well, yeah, I mean, think about it. Humble beginnings, kind of farm boy turned,
turn into
Jedi.
Jedi Knight, good versus evil, kind of thing. It all flows into that realm.
For sure.
But obviously, it's some of like the side themes and some of those things that really catch my attention, especially looking back at Star Wars. Because when you initially look at it, you go, wow, sci-fi. Wow, that's cool. Lightsabers. They cool. Every Halloween costume ever. I remember, doing a Darth Vader and like a Luke Skywalker, like all those kind of things. And then I got bored to the point where I was a hockey player, as in I was smart, big brain, put on some rollerblades and go to each house.
And then hit them instead of with a hockey stick with a lightsaber. Because he still had those, but he didn't have a hockey stick.
Not quite.
Well,
but it's called efficiency. You get as much candy as possible by going on the Not my brightest time, but at the same time, then I kind of got bored. I'm like, you know what? I don't really for the candy anymore. But then you still see a bunch of Skywalkers walking around.
I saw more Darth Vaders than Luke Skywalkers.
Yeah.
I feel like that costume is just it's
iconic. It's an iconic. It's definitely an iconic image. So obviously Luke Skywalker goes from like Padawan to Jedi Knight, the path of rookie to a
master.
Well, master's one way to put it, but elite, I should say.
I'm gonna sneeze.
Bless you.
I didn't do it yet. Hold your horses. I think I might have lost it.
Hopefully. So obviously Palpatine or the Darth Sidious. That wasn't a sneeze.
But
Okay,
you know what? Let's take it back a notch, okay? I'm just kidding. Whoa.
So the prequels focus on Anakin, which kind of there's like a mirror image that I think they were going for with like because the original trilogy came out first, which is for those who don't know, episodes 4, 5, and 6. So the prequels done afterward, 1, 2, and 3, were depicting Anakin's upbringings.
Darth Vader, for people who
Which
don't know.
also for Darth Vader.
The one guy who doesn't know.
Patrick.
Who is this guy?
So yeah. And I think it was really well done in the mirror aspect of it,
Yeah.
where they both come from the same direction, but then with the turn that Anakin had, Luke did not.
Yeah, you're seeing essentially a very similar story.
It's they follow the same path.
Trajectory almost,
They
but
follow the same path, but
how do
there's a difference.
how your actions kind of and what happens to you can change somebody's direction in life.
And obviously there were different circumstances
for sure.
each of them. But I always thought that was something interesting.
It is interesting, yeah.
Which is, again, you could go into several case studies of Star Wars, and obviously this is just looking at little tiny aspects of a greater big, franchise. So obviously the sequels, which Disney orchestrated with Kylo Ren
For better or for
and
worse.
Rey, all that kind of stuff. Not the biggest fan. Especially The Force Awakens, like it was basically a retelling of A New Hope, but just watered down. Had less plot to me. And I kind of lost interest at that point. But Rogue One really came back strong for me because I thought Rogue One was good. I watched Solo, wasn't sold on Solo.
Wasn't sold on Solo.
Quote it. No, but but yeah. So we're doing a lot of so yeah.
That tells you we're really prepared for this.
We totally watch stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
So again, so trying to find my notes here. We got that.
Yes, young Padawan. I told him ahead of time that that was gonna be my contributions, were just random yes, young Padawan, or maybe a Chewbacca noise here, but I haven't developed the courage to do a Chewbacca noise yet.
Don't worry, it'll come. With time, young Padawan.
Oh, thank you.
So one of the things that, like, I'm trying to tie this almost into like a faith realm at this point, with Anakin and like with Luke, is something. I mean, I was thinking of this. I don't even have this written down, to be honest, because I thought of it kind of spontaneously. It kind of, like, Anakin to me gives more of an Adam figure.
Interesting.
Like from like the Garden of Eden.
How so?
Especially with like Sidious, Darth Sidious, being like that serpent that's whispering in the
kind
lies.
of the little temptations or
And obviously Anakin falls, quote unquote. He turns away from the Force, which the Force is another conversation we'll get into. But he falls and is later redeemed by Luke, which is interesting. Obviously, it's not the same as like Adam and the second Adam, with the second Adam being Jesus, as we would know. Obviously, Luke is not Jesus. There's no. He's not. He definitely struggles. Anger is something we still see in him, which is a stark difference, I would say, than Jesus. But it's that humanity that we see intermixed throughout, and even within Anakin himself, even as Darth Vader, and especially in the Return of the Jedi, you see kind of him realize that fact of, oh, I still have good in me.
Yeah.
Because I think there was a lot of that guilt, especially with how everything transpired. And he's like, well, I guess I have to go this direction because of what I've done.
Well, that just makes an interesting antagonist, too,
Yes.
is when you see that kind of human side. Because I think a lot of the times, and this is maybe a separate conversation, but in fiction, and even maybe in real life, too, people get so far gone, and you see villains as kind of just this one side. We're the bad guy sort of deal, and it's interesting to see that human side to them.
Yeah.
And we kind of talked about it with Loki, too, last week.
Yeah. Um, so one of the things I also wanted to bring up that I actually have written down is again the David and Goliath
Mm.
aspect. So you have Luke, who, well, he's a rookie by all intents and purposes. I mean, he was trained a little bit by Obi-Wan before Obi-Wan just went. I mean, he helps out as like a force
Sure.
like guide to Luke, but it's not quite the same. I mean, Yoda helps him here and there, but at the end of the day, he's just a kid.
Yeah.
Who goes through any troubles, and then obviously you get told, "Luke, I am your father,"
Yeah.
like the iconic quote or whatever. It's just like, "You're not my father. I deny it. That's not true." And then kind of grasping the reality of everything. It hits hard. So like that's one of my favorite scenes in that
For sure.
particular movie. Um, but yeah, that David versus Goliath narrative, um, where it's not necessarily even Luke versus Darth Vader.
Mm.
It's almost Darth Vader versus Sidious as well,
Mm.
going against the quote unquote like devil, like the serpent. So
Yeah.
going against that and going against that, even though you know what will cost you. Because Darth Vader at that point knew he was gonna die with all the lightning and old age and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. Um, and I have quotes as well from that whole scene and everything that it touches home, especially for Anakin's character, but also Luke's as well.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, and then something that I didn't really consider and wouldn't have considered if I didn't go to some of these locations is a couple of years ago I was given the opportunity to go like across the world, so I went to Jordan in Wadi Rum, which is a very, very cool place if you've ever gone. Or if not, take a look at some pictures and you'll see kind of what I mean here. Um, Wadi Rum was one of the filming locations of Rogue One for the planet of Jeddah. So Jedi. I think that was kind of
A
intentional.
little on the nose.
Um, and another planet that was for like the ninth episode of Star Wars, which personally I never actually watched, just because I was disappointed
fair.
with the direction it was going,
That is a
and I
completely fair
never
point.
was really interested.
It's not worth it.
But Wadi Rum itself is really cool. So I encourage you, if you have the opportunity, go. It's cool.
Mhm.
But something I really wanted to stick out, and this kind of goes into the Force and Rogue One a little bit. So the Force itself was viewed by a lot of people in quotes and everything as an ancient religion,
Mm.
which to me is very similar to how the Holy Spirit operates. Like that guide that kind of, I don't know, what is it, like another thought? It's like it's not your own thought, but like someone
It's like a
else's.
little whisper in your
It's like,
ear,
yeah, it's
sort
a
of
little
deal.
little whisper.
Little
Oh, a little whisper. I thought I was saying something and then caught
I heard him
myself.
say it. I
Oh,
had to
the
go.
little
I had to run
whisper.
with it. No, I know what you mean.
Obviously, it's not the same.
No.
Let us be clear. It's not the same. But it's something that stands out to me as, that's interesting. Especially when you consider, like, one of the most sacred sites for the Force, which was Jeddah, or like Jedi. So the ones who follow the Force.
Mhm.
So Christians, the way of Christ, It's that kind of mentality that kind of stood, like, especially as I was a little bit of research on it, kind of stood out to me. And with Jeddah, and this is like a quote from Wikipedia, the fandom site of Star Wars. is Jeddah led the moon to become a world of worship for those who believed in the Force, and a holy site for pilgrims who sought spiritual guidance. And another site that like I looked at to basically say the reasonings of why they went to certain locations. Um, for Jeddah, one of the inspirations behind it was Mecca and Jerusalem. So kind of that pilgrimage
really
to a
interesting.
holy sacred site. And it's funny because it follows that, Christian theme. I mean, obviously you have Mecca as well, but Jerusalem, again, is a sacred site for both, well, I shouldn't say both, but both Islam, Judaism, Christianity.
Hmm.
All three, Jerusalem plays a
It's
huge part.
that's a really interesting little
So it's a holy
factoid.
spot.
Yeah, and it's interesting that they chose that as the filming location
And
too.
and the filming location, I was going to get into that
Yeah.
as well. With Wadi Rum. And this is something that maybe not all of you on here may know. Wadi Rum, in that location, is where the Israelites would have wandered in the desert during Exodus. And so the places where they were filming for like this the Holy Land, basically, for the Jedi, was also in the realm of the Holy Land for Christians or for
That's cool.
Jews. Obviously, they're wandering out of Egypt into like Jordan and eventually into Israel.
It's still fascinating though. I mean,
But going into, and this is where they were learning how, like, basically, how to rely on God to provide for all of their needs, which was also the same kind of mentality that they take for the Force. Now, an interesting part of the Force that they have is they have the good side of the Force and the bad side of the Force.
hmm
Which to me, again, obviously this is a little bit different, but you have God as like the good side of the Force, and then you have Satan, the fall,
hmm
like a fallen angel, so the bad side. Interesting. Obviously, I'm not going to get into like angels, demons, all that kind of stuff because that's just a can of worms for a different time. But I find it really interesting that that's kind of the direction. Obviously, they filmed it in Rogue One for Jeddah,
Mm.
but that is a backdrop to A New Hope. And it's interesting that the hope that they got on Jeddah transitioned to a new Hope
hmm
in the original trilogy. And considering the foundations of what Jeddah was, that to me speaks of more of like a Christian theme. Maybe they were intending it, maybe they weren't. But that's something that stuck out to me as I was like preparing for it. Because I'm like, hey, I've been to a place where they filmed something for,
Star Wars.
Star Wars. Haven't been to like Death Valley where some of Tatooine was filmed, for example. Or Tunisia or Tanzania or however you say it. I apologize in advance. Which were mainly the Tatooine places,
Yeah.
which is where both Anakin and Luke grew up. Again, that mirroring thing with Luke and Anakin.
Yeah.
So, like, going to what the hope was. So, what was the hope in A New Hope?
Enlighten me, Brandon.
Well, you don't want to add to the conversation.
No, I want to sit here and listen and gain my confidence for my Chewbacca impression.
So, the hope. So, to put this in context, like Princess Leia, all that, they were part of the rebellion against the Empire led by Darth Sidious or Palpatine, Emperor Palpatine. So, A New Hope was a blueprint on destroying the Death Star, which was basically a fear tactic
Yeah.
implemented by the Empire to basically squash rebellions or squash any that oppose them.
They failed. Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
Spoiler alert, the Force is with Luke. They failed.
I know I should have said it ahead of time. I messed up.
um, so something that kind of stuck out to me, again, for what the Death Star was,
Yeah.
is similar to how Rome also ruled in ancient Rome. They did a lot of fear tactics to hold
Oh, yeah,
people
they
in
did.
check. For example, the cross.
One of the most horrifying, you know.
Deaths or any kind of form of punishment that you could have.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's other punishments as well, but
Yeah, the Roman Empire were masters of nightmarish
or you
punishment.
even consider the Colosseums where people literally
Oh.
fight to their deaths
Just for
for
other...
entertainment.
Yeah.
For entertainment. Or different public executions, whatever. It's just, or the brutality even of the Roman army.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So that's something that kind of came to my mind as well. Like, okay, so it's the hope to create a better future than the oppressive whatever we're going on
Whatever
here.
we're living under now.
Yeah. Which obviously I don't know what the intent behind all of it was, but I can't.
Your mind
Obviously,
goes to
my
that
mind goes a certain direction because of the lens I'm looking at it
thing. Oh
through.
yeah, for sure.
And obviously, through this podcast, we're kind of looking at things in that perspective. And this is a little bit of my nerddom that I'm kind of exploring here through different things that other people nerd out about. Obviously, this is an aspect of it. So obviously, there's other parts in like Star Wars that you could talk about for different things. Like, for example, like Mos Eisley, different parts, they were filmed in like basically an Islamic community. Like, I want to say like one of the things was like filmed like at a mosque or something, and then they edited it out for like different reasons, and like the main trilogy, different things like that. But it's just interesting, and it's funny also that they use like these different filming locations are different worlds of the Star Wars universe, but yet it's still our same planet.
Yeah.
I find that interesting, and it shows you how unique and different the planet is.
Yeah.
So you got Hoth, which is a combination of Iceland and Switzerland, like all those kind of areas, and then you got China for like part of the the prequels. I can't remember. It starts with a K. The other nerds of Star Wars fandom would know.
You're gonna have that one guy. It's his favorite.
It's a
planet, and he's gonna get mad at
KYSS something. That planet. That planet. I know I'm terrible. But and then I have some quotes that kind of stood out. I tried to take one from each of the original trilogy, at least of the original trilogy. I would have probably taken one for Rogue One, but I just stuck with the original trilogy because, to me, the original trilogy is just
It's the best.
it's
one.
the best of
Easily.
all the trilogies. The prequels aren't bad.
Mm-mm.
Don't get me wrong. The prequels aren't bad, especially since I like the character of Anakin and the redemption story of Anakin.
Which helps big time.
Yes, it definitely helps. Because when you first, like, the way my dad told me to watch Star Wars is you start with 4, go to 6, then go 1, 2, 3. That's how you read. Or not read. Watch.
No, that's not how you read a book. How you don't start with chapter 4.
I'm going to read a book.
Hold on, let me flip.
Here, let me fast forward.
Okay, I like this. Let me start back. Oh, it sucks.
Now, 2 times speed. No. Anyway. So, here's a quote, and this is between Obi-Wan Kenobi and Luke Skywalker. So, this is A New Hope. Just saying. I said that already, but we'll say it again.
Fair enough.
So, Luke goes, "How did my father die?" Obi-Wan goes, "A young Jedi named Darth Vader, who was a pupil of mine until he turned to evil, helped the Empire hunt down and destroy the Jedi Knights. He betrayed and murdered your father. Now the Jedi are all but extinct. Vader was seduced by the dark side of the Force." It's interesting. The Obi-Wan says, Darth Vader murdered your father.
Yeah.
So Anakin was struck down by Darth Vader. He let the dark side take the better of him. It's a simple little quote that I think speaks volumes into, just to give a little backdrop into Anakin, but also to kind of set up what Luke will eventually succeed in bringing about redemption. So I don't want to miss that quote, because I think it holds very powerful weight. And obviously, when you're watching the movie, you're going to go right past it. You're not going to recognize the
impact.
The impact that it has. And then for Empire Strikes Back, this is between Luke and Yoda. I'm not going to try to attempt the Yoda impression. Just imagine it in your own head.
He's going to try.
No, I'm not. Fine, you try.
No, I'm embarrassed.
Do or do not. There is no try. Kidding. Anyways, so Yoda goes, and this is I can't remember exactly where this is. I think it's either around the cave that Luke goes into.
What's the quote?
But yeah. So Yoda goes, yes, run. Yes, a Jedi's strength flows from the Force, but beware of the dark side. Anger, fear, aggression. The dark side of the Force are they. Easily they flow, quick to join you in a fight, quick to anger.
That's...
If once you start down the dark path forever, it will dominate your destiny. Consume you it will, as it did Obi-Wan's apprentice.
That's another really good one.
Luke, Vader, is the dark side stronger? Yoda, no, quicker, easier, more seductive. Luke, but how am I to know the good side from the bad? Yoda, you will know. When you are calm, at peace, passive. The Jedi uses the Force for knowledge and defense, never for attack. Luke, but tell me why I can't... Yoda, no, there is no why. And then it goes further in. But it's that kind of, Master, teach me what is all this? And Yoda's given like the knowledge quips.
Yeah.
You know, the old wizened Jedi that he is of like 800 something years old. little green munchkin there.
Just a little green nude.
But it's like the quick to anger, all those kind of things. Those are the same kind of things that are like the opposite of God.
Well, and think about it, even just what he said, you know, how the bad side is even, it's easier.
It's easier. It's easier to go.
It's more tempting. Yeah. I mean, think about it. I mean, usually, if it's easier, you probably don't always want to do it because it's not always the right path.
Yeah.
Just even in our day-to-day lives, I mean, the easy way out isn't
it kind of,
necessarily.
I mean, my mind kind of went to this, like, don't look a gift horse in the mouth or something like that. Trojan horse, if anybody who doesn't know. Yeah.
Yeah, we all know how that went.
It's, as in, like, let's just say a city was destroyed. Or taken over really quickly because... Oh, look, Trojan horse. Like,
he sent us a pony.
He sent us a gift. Oh my goodness! And then that
didn't go well.
That gift was not good. Nope. It was seductive. Real seductive. Look at that pony.
It was the script again.
That's the fun of it, though. And now in Return of the Jedi. So I gave a little before and after. So this is Luke talking to Darth Vader / Anakin through both of these instances. One kind of like, I want to say like the midpoint of the movie, and then one at the very tail end. And you'll know when that is. So the first one, Luke goes, "Your thoughts betray you, Father. I feel the good in you, the conflict." Darth Vader, "There is no conflict." Luke, you couldn't bring yourself to kill me before, and I don't believe you'll destroy me now. You know, when Luke's arm was taken off in the last movie. Darth Vader, you underestimate the power of the dark side. If you will not fight, then you will meet your destiny. Skip forward a bit. Darth Vader, so this is after they defeated Darth Sidious and Palpatine, threw him off into space. You know, as you do. And Darth Vader is dying at this time. The electroshock that Darth Vader has received is far too much for his poor body to handle after all the stuff that happened to him in the past in the, you know, the suit that's basically keeping him alive.
Mm-hmm.
Darth Vader goes, Luke, help me take this mask off. Luke, but you'll die. Darth Vader, nothing, Wheeze, can stop that now. Just for once, Wheeze. Let me, Wheeze. Look on you with my own eyes. I know how you like a wheeze. I'm not going to try to. So then Luke takes off Darth Vader's mask one piece at a time. And you see the scarred, pale, bald head old man that looks sad at Luke's. But then he gives a faint smile. Anakin. And I like how, in the quotes, it changes from Darth Vader to Anakin. Anakin, now, go, my son. Leave me. Luke, no, you're coming with me. I'm not going to leave you here. I've got to save you. Anakin, you already have, Luke. You were right. You were right about me. Your sister, you were right. Anakin smiles, eyes droops, and he gave his last breath. Impactful, to say the least.
Yeah.
The redemption of Anakin. Because he never really...
Squirrel.
He never really did want to take out his son.
Mm-mm.
He never wanted to. And that was that good in him that he didn't want to do it. Because another quote that I didn't mention is, we can rule this world together, father and son. He wanted to be with his son. And his son brought around that hope to Anakin, saying there's still good in you yet. Even at his dying breath. The saying, the dark side did not prevail.
There's still a chance.
You're still a Jedi.
Yeah. That's... Yeah.
And he becomes a Force ghost. Like his master Obi-Wan. Like Yoda. That's powerful, I think. And maybe that's the whole story of Anakin itself. I mean, obviously everybody knows Anakin from the lines of sand. And why he doesn't like sand, because he gets coarse and it's everywhere. We all know these kind of quotes.
Those are the most powerful.
Those quotes are the most powerful.
No, but in all seriousness, he's got one of the most fascinating narrative arcs of any character in the series.
That's how you write a good antagonist. Because at one point, he was not an antagonist.
Mm-mm. No, he was the protagonist of the original trilogy. Now, protagonist doesn't always necessarily mean hero.
Yeah.
But he was the leading man. He was the...
And obviously, I don't want to downplay Luke.
No.
Because Luke definitely has an impact and is very valuable. But he's got his own human flaws as well. Because he does still lean into that anger, as Yoda does allude to in the second movie, Empire Strikes Back. It's that same anger that Anakin had it's still carried down,
Mm-hmm.
which is also why he's not like Jesus, because obviously it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
A little bit different. But I can't state enough why I like Anakin's character. I like Anakin as a character and Darth Vader as an antagonist.
Yeah.
Because you feel for Darth Vader / Anakin. Because he's still under the thumb of the Empire. He's not really free.
No.
He's never free. It's with the illusion of freedom, which is what the dark side gives you.
And in our own life, it's what sin does.
Yeah.
I mean,
And obviously, we're taking this from a faith perspective. So,
yes.
if that wasn't already abundantly clear, especially when I look back, it's some like, and this is something like I watched in my childhood for like the first bit, with the original trilogy and the prequels. I watched that with my dad on the couch,
Mm-hmm.
when I was younger. And you don't really think about the intricate details within it and why it makes a good movie
Mm-hmm.
until you kind of look a little bit deeper into some of these things. And I think why Star Wars is so timeless is because of this story.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So kudos to George Lucas for like writing and making the movies and all this stuff surrounding Star Wars. And why I also think it kind of tails off when Disney took over. Because Disney was utilizing some of the scripts that like George Lucas had for Rogue One. And then you can see when George Lucas left, what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. They tried to replicate George Lucas's
the magic
yeah.
touch.
They tried to replicate it, even so far as trying to replicate A New Hope.
Yeah.
Which was not the greatest decision in my opinion.
It wasn't, but in all honesty,
it was trying to bring people. It was
at
bringing
this
people
trilogy.
back to, Star Wars and making it, rise up in
'Cause-
popularity again, which it did. It was still one. It's still one of the most, grossing movies of
I
all
think
time.
all of them grossed really well, to be honest.
A New Hope was far and away.
Oh no,
the
no.
top.
I mean, just in general, though, I think all three movies were
And
a
the only
financial success.
The only reason the most recent was a financial success is because of the success of the franchise.
Yeah.
And then you'll see afterward it plummeted. But that's kind of similar with what Return of the Jedi was, and like I was looking even at Metascores of the original trilogy. A New Hope was 90. Empire Strikes Back was an 86. And then A Return of the Jedi was 57. Obviously, that only tells you a little bit of the messaging and everything in it. But that's one thing to describe it.
Yes.
I mean, it's a number. It's a number. At the end of the day, those are all numbers. But what you can glean from some of these things, and we're looking at stuff in pop culture. Like, this isn't a Christian movie, so to speak.
But
like,
it's still interesting to see those undertones.
There's still these
where you
different
can derive those
themes and
themes.
undertones, and maybe some people don't attribute them to Christianity.
No, I mean, Star Wars is a big one. You see a lot where people kind of are like, oh, it's got more Buddhist influences.
Yeah, they've got all these different influences. But it's particularly with Rogue One, and I didn't even realize this as I was kind of looking at it. I was researching the Force, basically, and what the Force was, and then you look at it and go, oh, that don't sound Buddhist. That don't sound Buddhist. So it's just interesting, and obviously they have all these different worlds, and it's a whole different universe, and they've built on it countless times, whether that's the animated stuff that the kids nowadays watch, like with the Clone Wars and different things. I don't even know if that might
novels,
not.
You've got novels.
Yeah, they have novels. I don't even know if the Clone Wars are still animating still. But I know you I know you have the Mandalorian, you have like all that kind of stuff coming out currently, and all that's Disney. But people are still interested in the story, and I think it just proves to how timeless the creator of Star Wars was. I don't know if that was George Lucas. I know he did the movies. I don't know who actually wrote Star Wars.
I can look it up real quick.
Yeah,
Give me a second.
yeah.
Looking at the
Either way, very successful. I really only know it because of the movies. I never read Star Wars. I watched Star Wars.
George Lucas wrote at least New Hope. I guess I can just look at all of them real quick. But New Hope he did write. And obviously this is derived from Wikipedia.
Oh yeah, but I mean, Wikipedia is much more trustworthy than it used to be. And I cross-reference things when I do look at stuff like that. So I try to find multiple things to cross-reference, and they give like things at the bottom for like where they took the information.
Yeah, I mean, again, Wikipedia, at least under their credits, they say for the at least the original trilogy story by George Lucas. So his hand was in.
I mean, that could have triggered the start of the writing.
Yeah.
Who knows? Because sometimes that'll happen where this universe is so vast that they kind of go into it. But it already had the pre-workings of what happened beforehand, which then the prequels kind of allude to. And maybe because George Lucas did write it, he already knew what was going to happen and why he wrote it the way he did. So, I mean, that makes sense if George Lucas wrote it.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, kudos. Now, Star Wars isn't my favorite series out there.
It's not mine either.
But I can appreciate the
impact that it had
and why it's still popular. I mean, you have your Trekkies, you got your Star Trek people. It's not nearly as popular as Star Wars. I hate to say it. Just because the storytelling in Star Wars is so good. Again, George Lucas's Star Wars storytelling is so good. And Rogue One to some degree. I really did like Rogue One. Even though you already knew the ending because of what happened in A New Hope, and you knew they were goners, basically. Spoiler alert. You learn that in technically the first, original trilogy movie in A New Hope, that the planet they were on got wiped. But it puts into perspective like that people are gearing toward hope.
Yeah.
And that, they're willing to go to many lengths to provide that for others if they can. Or, like, the power that hope can have over a situation. Like, you can be in a super desperate area, and a lot of people can, like, unfortunately be, like, sacrifices for a lot of things, like the planet that the Death Star was, aimed at. Alderaan rest in many pieces. As millions of lives in the Force silenced. I mean, I can't help but keep thinking of like the Roman army when I think of like all that. So that's why my first thought went to like, oh, it's oppression, fear tactics, all that kind of stuff. Obviously, I wouldn't have thought of that when I first watched it.
Well, yeah, because you watched it most likely as a kid.
Yeah, I mean, I dressed as Darth Vader. Did I know who Darth Vader was, really? No.
He's the guy with the cool costume.
He's the guy with the costume on shelves everywhere.
Yeah.
And obviously, my dad didn't let me watch, like... He let me watch, like, the first two of the prequels. But then, stickler for PG-13 for the for the third one. I mean, but when I watched it, I liked it. I mean, it's action for sure. You see that anger. You see all that stuff. You see the happenings of how you get from point A to point B. And yeah. So then next week, I think we'll kind of start to dabble into manga and anime and cartoons, and we'll see where we can go from there and take a look at some of that. We'll probably focus like one on like anime, one on manga, one on cartoons, or something along those lines. This guy right here doesn't know so much about anime and manga and stuff like that, but we might be able to get a guest speaker that can, come in and share some things.
Which would be very cool.
So, we will catch you next time, and a peace.
Adios.